You know, does it indicate anything about Prince Charles's politics, or just that he's a diplomat?
I think probably not. It doesn't indicate much other than America is Britain's closest ally, really, and so as head of state, the King would be expected to write such a letter. But yes, as Rebecca says, we know that Donald Trump is a big admirer of the royal family and he's enjoyed meeting them in the past. So I think our government, when it is unpopular with the Trump administration being a socialist government, probably think that the royal family could be useful in building bridges, I suspect.
And of course, other cheeky commentators, not me, you understand, might think that, you know, King Charles is probably sort of like asking Donald not to send Harry back, maybe?
I think one thing we know is that Donald Trump won't do anything without checking with the royal family first. So I can imagine a slightly awkward conversation where he'd say, you know, Charles, I'm thinking of sending Harry and Meghan back to the UK. What do you think about that? And you can imagine the King say, oh, I'm not sure quite. We want them back.
I would definitely watch that Netflix show, though.
Yeah, so
yeah.
It puts the president in a slightly awkward position. But I think, yeah, anything he does, he'll want to do with the blessing of the royal family.
And I think I've mentioned it on the programme before, when he came for his state visit here, staff told me that he was actually a joy to have as a guest. And it's not what they expected. He really didn't want to cause too much trouble. He was clearly enjoying the experience. And I know when he had tea with the then Prince of Wales, obviously King Charles now, and Queen Camilla, with himself and Melania, the palace were quite annoyed. Someone wrote a story saying that Charles was planning to lecture him on green issues, because obviously they have very diverging opinions on issues such as climate change. They were quite angry about that, because, like, you know, give the Prince of Wales some credit. You know, he knows his job and he knows where to push boundaries and not. And they said, actually, both President Trump came out that meeting buzzing. They got on really well, and that Melania later revealed that, you know, the King had been, still then Prince of Wales, still writing to her and saying how much, you know, he enjoyed spending their time. And I know while a state visit is not in the diary yet, they're very keen to invite President Trump to Windsor as soon as he kind of swings by in Europe next. And I can imagine him probably being quite keen to take up that offer as well.
And of course, there was this from March when the Daily Mail's royal editor Rebecca English explained how King Charles has been a key figure in diplomatic moves between Britain, the US, Ukraine and Canada.
Well, there were front page pictures really pretty much on every national newspaper in the UK, and I would actually argue a lot around the world, of the King meeting with President Zelensky of Ukraine up at Sandringham, his private bolt hole. Now, there's some really interesting background, which in a nutshell is that when President Zelensky knew he was coming to the UK, he asked for a meeting with the King. I was told that the government were consulted, and they told Buckingham Palace, yes, it was fine to meet. Then we obviously had the debacle in the White House, and conversations went on between the Buckingham Palace and the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, should this meeting still go ahead, and the government decided that it was. And I think it was a very powerful photograph, which, in, you know, they say a picture paints 1,000 words, and it certainly did with that it showed the King standing shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine.
And then another embattled world leader, not one facing war, showed up. What went on there?
Now, again, this is very interesting, and I think it's be interesting to a lot of our Canadian viewers, because their Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, was in the UK for this big summit over the schism between Ukraine and the United States. And he asked to meet the King as well. Now, on one hand, it's not surprising that the Prime Minister of a country would ask to meet his head of state when he is there. But I was told, do not underestimate the significance of this meeting by very, very good sources. And while the King, as a constitutional monarch, cannot come out swinging publicly, they try to, you know, show, like the royal family often does, their feelings in deeds, if not necessarily words. And it was a very, very warm welcome, you know, hands clasped, sitting together in his salon in Sandringham. And actually, the Canadian government has briefed since that the King made very clear that he supports Canada in its efforts to resist being made the 51st state of the United States of America. I mean, I can't quite even believe I'm saying those words.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Suddenly this supposedly apolitical monarchies is really getting dragged into things. I mean, Richard, the New York Times said that Charles was caught up in a, quote, a swirling diplomatic drama in a way that is almost unheard of for a British sovereign. And he's in a really tricky position, particularly where Canada's concerned, isn't he?
I think he is, and I think he needs to be careful. I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure that Queen Elizabeth would have allowed herself to be drawn in as much as she has. I mean, you know, in the case of Zelensky asking to meet the King, you know, that going ahead directly after the disagreements in the White House, it was very controversial, very symbolic. He didn't have to meet him. It could have been done in private, perhaps. You know, remember what we know about King Charles's views. You know, he loathes Vladimir Putin. He's compared him to Hitler, as Rebecca once brilliantly revealed in a front-page scoop. You know, he thinks he's a terrible dictator. You know, and there's President Trump trying to sort of mend fences and bring people together. So it is awkward. And when it comes to Canada, my goodness, I mean, come on, we've had Trump sort of semi-joking about making Canada a 51st state. But what he has done as a fact is impose big tariffs on Canadian goods. Well, you know, that is the country of which the King is head of state. So it really does, I would argue, you know, it puts the state visit of Donald Trump to Britain into jeopardy. I
would be so bold as to maybe play devil's advocate on your assertion about the Queen there, because the Queen, don't forget, will have remembered very much an imperiled Europe. She may well have felt compelled to get involved at this crisis.
Yeah, I mean, look, who knows? We've had this before when talking about Princess Diana, that it's tasteless to speculate about what dead people would do. But either way, I'm just saying the King needs to be careful and the people around him need to know that.
I mean, I would say that we do know, for example, that there was a very meaningful intervention in the Brexit debate from Queen Elizabeth, also in the Scottish independence vote. And actually, one thing I should add, because again, I think it might be of interest to our North American viewers, is there have been a lot of questions about why King Charles hasn't had a realm visit to Canada yet since he's become king, because obviously he is the head of state of Canada. And he was meant to visit this time last year, but obviously because of his cancer diagnosis couldn't. Then because he already had the big trip to Australia and Samoa already in the diary and 2 other inward state visits, he couldn't do it. But I've been told it is an absolute priority as soon as the election cycle is out the way in Canada for him to get out.
Well, he needs to get in there quickly before Trump, you know, annexes.
And he has to get a visa.
And the timing is going to be crucial, because Trump is going to be coming to Scotland potentially in the summer for a private visit to discuss the forthcoming state visit. That will almost certainly happen unless things go disastrously wrong, but they're going to fit it in, him going to Canada as soon as they can after that and before President Trump's state visit to the UK.
So tell us
a lot about juggling.
Tell us what you know about how these visits work. Who is the directive? Who directs here? Is it Charles inviting heads of state? Is it the British government telling Charles he needs to invite heads of states, or it's the British government inviting? What?
It's very much the latter, actually.
Right.
You know, these state visits are undertaken at the request of the British government. Now, of course, I think if, you know, the monarch, whoever it might be, or Buckingham Palace had a particularly strong objection to it, that clearly would be taken on board. But as we know, we've had state visits here that Queen Elizabeth was responsible for as host. For example, when the Chinese president came to visit, and memorably, you know, the king now, who was then Prince of Wales, boycotted the state banquet because he was so opposed to their treatment of Tibet. So you know, there can be a lot of swirling emotions around them.
I have seen you know, noise of a petition swirling online to revoke the invitation for the state visit for Donald Trump. But can King Charles say no to such a request?
Not really.
No,
I mean, and also, I mean, look, that is a matter for the government, and I think the government have suggested, unless there is yet another twist and turn in this saga, and of course that may well happen, I think it's very unlikely, because they see, as I've kept on saying on this programme and in the paper for many months now, you know, the King is a linchpin in this relationship between Britain and the US at the moment.
And expanding on that, you know, when he became king, Richard, Charles said that he wanted to be seen as a sort of a grandfather to the nation, and if he manages to help ease this diplomatic crisis with President Trump and Ukraine, he may well end up being something of a grandfather to the world, the Western world.
I'm sure.
Is that a bit over the top? I don't know.
I'm sure he'd love that title, but it's very awkward, fast-moving situation. I mean, to give you an example, there's been reports that the King wasn't very happy that when our Prime Minister Keir Starmer arrived at the White House, he sort of brandished this letter, which was meant to be a private letter.
Was it meant to be a private letter?
Well, it's not clear, but generally that sort of thing would be. And its contents were revealed. It was about the invitation for the state visit. And people were hailing the success of Keir Starmer's visit. But then very soon it sort of unravelled in the sense that whatever he tried to do on Ukraine appears to have come to nothing.
But he does like to see himself as a convener, doesn't he, Charles? And this could, if it plays well, it could be quite a significant part of his legacy.
It could, but I would just say he needs to be very, very careful on that front.
What do you think, Rebecca?
You're right, he is a convener, and I think we've seen actually over recent weeks how important that is. I do think Richard's right, he has to be very careful. The government will clearly want our head of state, our monarch, to do a lot of things, and it is up to his advisors at Buckingham Palace to ultimately decide if that's wise. That said, there is a little bit of a love-in between Buckingham Palace and the Labour administration in this country at the moment. They seem to really like Starmer and the ministers around him and what they're doing. So maybe that has something into play with it, I don't know.
Could Prince Harry actually be kicked out of America? Never say never was the view of one royal expert who had extensively covered the row over the Duke of Sussex's US visa and the powerful forces who want answers to what Harry told immigration officials about his past drug use.
Well, I think he'd be foolish to think that this is now all over. What happened in the US this week was that certain documents were released which were not actually his application for a visa and what he put on his application form, which is what this Heritage Foundation, a Washington think tank, have been trying to get to the bottom of, but actually explain the reasons why they weren't going to issue the full details. It was also heavily redacted. It was very hard to work out what, if anything, we've learned. But what I have learned is that the Heritage Foundation is an organisation that is very much in tune with the Donald Trump White House, and they've really got the bit between their teeth. They're very well resourced, well funded, they've got a top-notch legal team, and they are pursuing this, and they will go on, and they are confident that at some stage, either through legal means or by Trump himself unilaterally issuing the actual documents that everyone wants to see, we'll get to the bottom of it. So what is it we're trying to find out here? What we're trying to find out is, was Harry truthful about his drug use when he applied for his green card to live in America? And it's a talking point because in his memoir, Spare, he famously talked about his use of cocaine as a 17-year-old, and other recreational drugs that he'd taken over the years. Now, this might automatically disbar him from being allowed in the US. It is possible that he could even be deported. It's probably unlikely. It is also possible that Harry admitted this on the form and a special waiver was issued to allow him to stay. But these are the things people want to know.
Is it wrong of me to think that the fact that so much of these released documents are redacted speaks volumes?
Well, you can read too much into redacted documents, but yes, it could be that there is something there that the public have a right to know.
Do you think there's a risk for Harry that the more this is talked about, the more people will start to demand to know what on earth has gone on?
Well, it's a big issue. I think it's a question of fairness, isn't it? And from what I've heard from various Americans is they do feel strongly about it because lots of people are barred from entering America because of drug use that could be a long time in the past or something, or very minor. And then here they have someone who was boasting, frankly, in his memoirs about past drug use, has been welcomed in, the red carpet's been rolled out for him. So it's a question of fairness, and we know that Donald Trump has strong views on immigration, so he would want to seem that he's treating the rich the same way that he would treat other people. So anyway, we will, I think it's an issue that we'll carry on hearing about.
But even if, we find out there was special treatment or he, did lie diplomatically, it's never going to be. They're never going to kick Harry out of America, are they? It's like, that's not a diplomatically great place for the two countries.
Well, I would never say never. We just don't know. I think it's highly unlikely, but there may be issues if Harry were to leave the country and fly back in. I mean, it could be very embarrassing if he's sort of detained at immigration.
Yes, yes, I can imagine it would be. Yeah, you're sort of phoning your dad, or sort of like going back for your golden visa in Portugal. If you never thought you'd see the day that an American president would even for a second consider becoming an associate member of the Commonwealth, well, this next segment is for you.
Yeah, I thought this was really intriguing. It was a question of someone suggested to me that America could be invited to become an associate member of the Commonwealth. Now, the Commonwealth obviously had its roots in the British Empire, but it's expanded and it's a voluntary organisation and has quite a few members who, republics that have never been associated with Britain. So this was a suggestion which has been made in the past, actually. Last time Donald Trump was president, that because of his fondness for Britain, his love of the royal family, that it might be something that appeals to him.
But why? What's the point?
Well, from the Commonwealth's point of view, it would be great because it would be another strong, powerful member that would add to its influence. And from the British point of view, it could have great advantages. We've seen with the dispute between America and Canada, perhaps the Commonwealth could be a forum for helping to resolve these issues. The King is very passionate about the Commonwealth, just as his mother was, and I'm sure that he would love to see America join in some way, but whether he actually suggests it when he meets Donald Trump remains to be seen.
Well, I'll say this, I'd never thought I'd see the day that Australia was in the Eurovision Song Contest, so who knows what could happen. Who knows? Yeah. Then, back in April, Rebecca had a very important update on President Trump's state visit.
From President Trump himself, actually, because every time I speak to Buckingham Palace about it, they were like, we can't say anything, we're talking with the Foreign Office and with the White House, and then up pops President Trump going, when he was asked about it, going, oh, yeah, we're trying to get it together for September. What's interesting, and I think this is very fascinating, is that the mood very much from Buckingham Palace was, we would like to invite you over for this private visit to discuss the historic second state visit, and we'd like to invite you to Scotland, because they thought he would really appreciate a trip to Scotland. Obviously, his home of his late mother Mary. There's a lot of heritage there. He owns a golf course there, and more than that, we're going to invite you to either Balmoral or Dumfries House. So basically, into the very private enclave of the King, which I think they thought would be a very big gesture to him. But it either doesn't work out for him timing-wise, or he wants a bit more of the obvious pomp and pageantry. So Windsor Castle is now going to be.
Well, Balmoral or Dumfries House is not great for the photo shoots, is it? The backdrop. It's much better to have that, Windsor that Americans might know, or...
Exactly, but the funny thing is, that's actually, they saw Scotland as more
exclusive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, nobody, apart from really the Prime Minister or family members, gets invited to Balmoral. It's very much the private home. So and what's quite funny, some of the terminology the President used, he said that it's going to be a fest. I'm not quite sure what a fest is. I'm not sure even Buckingham Palace know what a fest is. But I think that means halfway between a private visit and a state visit.
He means it's going to be a party,
Yeah. Festival vibes at Windsor Castle.
We've got Buckingham Palace here,
At least it's not a covfefe, remember that?
Yeah, well, they can't actually go to Buckingham Palace because the last leg of the refurbishment is kicked in, so they can't actually use a lot of the staterooms now. But kind of Windsor Castle is still a very, very special place to visit.
And Richard, there was a report that the French president might get in there first. That's got to be a blow, hasn't it?
Well, I'm sure the King will enjoy this competition to see him first.
Who's your favourite?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've heard different things. I think it's not clear, actually, who will be the first to visit. But it does seem that the King struck up quite a warm relationship with Emmanuel Macron. Apparently they speak on the phone quite regularly. Perhaps the king likes to practice his French, you know.
Yeah.
But I think Macron's a very charming, personable person, so, you know, that makes sense.
You're saying President Trump is not?
No, I'm sure he is too, but... you know, anyway, so I think it's quite fun, this competition between them. So may the best man win.
And don't forget, sorry to interrupt, I was
Go.
saying when Queen Elizabeth died, I was really struck by the statement that Macron put out. Considering he president of a republic that obviously their royal family had a less happier end a couple of centuries ago, but it was so warm, and talking about, you know, the example that Queen Elizabeth set. So there's quite a good kind of, you know, Anglo-French relationship at the moment, I have to say.
Yeah, but do you think, Rebecca, we can really read much into it all who has the state visit first? Is that really such a significant
No, because if you were arguing that, you'd ask why South Korea had a state visit, you know, even before France. So and of course, let's not forget, this is not actually what the head of state wants, it's what the British government wants. It's where their priorities lie. And actually what was so clear about the trip that I went with them on to Italy before Easter, the state visit to Italy, is that the British government is really trying to reset relationships with European partners post the Brexit vote here. So they actually very much see that as a big priority for them. And of course, the King will go along with whoever the government sees their priorities lying with. So, and the fact is that President Trump has not only been given an historic state visit, but is also being invited for a personal visit. So, you know, I think you can't read too much into it.
And in May, Richard Eden was concerned about how King Charles would navigate his imminent trip to Canada, where he risked being caught in a diplomatic storm, while Rebecca agreed the King would be walking something of a political tightrope.
A very special and very whirlwind visit.
Big moment.
Yes, it is. It's huge, actually. I mean, he had planned to visit Canada as the head of state last year, and obviously he had to cancel those plans because he was diagnosed with cancer, and a lot of other things were in the diary, so he hasn't been able to do it. And Canada, as our Canadian viewers will know, has been going through the election cycle, and he can't visit during that time in case it's considered to offer legitimacy to one side over the other.
Yeah.
So Mark Carney, the new Prime Minister, who the King actually helpfully knows because he obviously was head of the Bank of England in this country for many years, straight away, and I think it's quite interesting, straight away out the starting blocks, he said, will you come and open our Parliament? And I think it's only the third time they will have given a speech and opened Parliament. Queen Elizabeth, I think, did it twice over her long reign as Canada's head of state. But he's going out there to do it. We're fitting in a few other engagements. There'll be some opportunities to meet the public, which I know our viewers who've actually been in contact with me are very excited about.
Well, indeed. Look out for Rebecca if you're in Canada and following the royal tour.
I'm travelling out with them, but we are literally out there, hitting the ground, doing some engagements on the Monday, the state opening on the Tuesday, and then there's another opportunity to meet the public. He'll be paying his respects at the War Memorial, and then literally straight on the plane back because he's got other stuff. But I think it's brilliant that he's going out there, and obviously there's a huge geopolitical story because of President Trump.
Well, quite. I was going to say, that leads me nicely to the question. There are those calling for the King to issue a basic hands-off Canada message to President Trump.
Well, I mean, it was the High Commissioner to Britain, the Canadian High Commissioner this week actually said that King Charles's visit will be seen as a hands-off Canada moment. So, you know, they're really ramping up the rhetoric ahead of the trip. And my goodness, you think, you know, the King's still undergoing cancer treatment, but he does have a hard job.
Well,
He's not a politician, but on the one hand, he's been sent out, you know, writing letters that was, you know, presented in quite a sort of vulgar way, really, by our Prime Minister in the White House to Trump, you know, inviting him. And so he's being used to sort of, I would say, to suck up to President Trump, frankly, to try to keep him on side, but at the same time, as to show Canada that they're valued and that the King's proud to be monarch of Canada. So he's got a really difficult diplomatic
it is, isn't it? Because it's
line.
like, you know, our royal family is supposed to be apolitical, but this is an absolute diplomatic tightrope, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, ostensibly he is going there to do his duty as sovereign of Canada, but he is absolutely going to be trying to navigate a very difficult tightrope, because obviously as a constitutional monarch, he can't say what he thinks. He can't, even the speech he gives in Parliament on the Tuesday will be written for him by the Canadian government, who obviously will be conscious of those sensibilities. But, you know, palace sources have made clear to me he has done everything he can within that parameter to show his support for Canada by posting very regularly on social media, messages and videos and photographs showing his pride at holding that role. He made a point of going to visit Canada House this week, and I thought it was very significant that he and that Queen Camilla walked over this map on the floor of Canada and was shown various kind of proud historical sites on it. So it was really placing him there in that particular role. But of course, he's a very gracious man and he's a very good diplomat. And when it comes to host President Trump, not once but twice in the next year, he will do that as well.
Do you think it will be seen, though, as a bit of a test for him, Richard?
Well, it's kind of like everything's a test, isn't it, for the king? You know, he's a relatively new monarch, and he's having his challenges, really. There's some things which Queen Elizabeth didn't face. This particular challenge, for example. The king, I would say, is doing very well so far in trying to keep everyone happy almost.
Yeah, well, let's see. Well, no doubt we'll be talking about that next week, and I can't wait to hear how you get on in Canada.
Yes, I think my eyes will be like that. I mean, literally, it's 48 hours.
You'll be glowing.
Well, just buy us a Toblerone at the airport.
Yes, please. Yes, buy us a present. Yeah, get me some maple syrup.
We actually don't get to go through duty free on these flights. So
here we go. Here we go.
I know.
He's got the excuses in already. And then, of course, came the actual visit to Canada, where the King received a very warm welcome. The Daily Mail's diary editor Richard Eden looked at how Charles navigated the political landmines scattered everywhere he went.
Oh, it was a terrific reception, and I think it really played to one very strong themes which are going on in North America and in Canada in particular. First of all, of course, it was the King's first visit as monarch, and they're very particular about the fact that in Canada, Charles is King of Canada. He's not the King of England on an overseas trip. He's coming home, and in fact, he was greeted on multiple occasions by the phrase, "welcome home." And I think that was a key to the whole thing, but also, of course, the underlying current in this brief visit, and it was only 24 hours, was the sort of rebuke, if that is the right word, that he was delivering to President Trump's ambitions to annex Canada, a vital part of the British Commonwealth, as America's 51st state.
It's interesting, isn't it, Richard Eden? Because royal commentators, including Rebecca English, have written about Charles walking this so-called political tightrope in Ottawa. How do you think he's done with that?
I think he's done very well. I mean, it genuinely has been a tightrope, because at the same time as this visit, the British government is keen to keep the new American president, Donald Trump, on side. So that's the challenge for the king. And I think, I wouldn't underestimate it, I think he has played a big role in trying to calm tensions, frankly. And you'll notice that Trump has piped down a bit recently. You know, he had Mark Carney at the White House, but he does seem to have toned down the rhetoric a lot. And I think the King's played a part in that, because Donald Trump is, he loves the royal family and is looking forward to visiting Britain. So I think he is more and more aware of those sensitivities.
But it's not a neutral statement, is it, to rush there on a seemingly short notice planned state visit?
Absolutely not. I mean, it was done deliberately in response to Trump's ambitions. And I hear what Richard says, but it shouldn't be forgotten that on the moment that the King arrived in Canada, Trump was tweeting or posting messages on True Social about how he hopes that Canada will join the Golden Dome defense mechanism that he wants to erect all over the United States, which he says would be free for Canadians if they become the 51st state. So the rhetoric hasn't dialed down from the White House quite yet.
No, and it's so interesting, isn't it? Because obviously we're really proud of the politically neutral space the royal family has, and and needs to have. But inevitably, in these sorts of world situations, you will be dragged into these discussions one way or another.
Yeah, and it's extremely difficult for members of the royal family because, however we like to phrase them as international statespeople, statesmen, they're not. They're figureheads of a constitutional monarchy, and they're very circumscribed by what they can say and how they say it. And although we know, because Richard and I have followed Charles as an outspoken Prince of Wales for many, many years, he must have been bursting to say something more, but of course he very much reflects the wishes of both the British government and the Canadian government in what he can say.
Then in June, we discovered that Donald Trump's visit in September would not be a private visit, would in fact be a full state visit. But did that upset the King? Rebecca explains. We have had confirmation that King Charles will host US President Donald Trump for a state visit to the UK this September. Rebecca, there were reports, however, that King Charles is reported to have been unhappy with how quickly the government has put this into action.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of background to this. So the Times newspaper reported this week that plans for a private visit weren't going to go ahead, but we would go straight to a state visit in September. Now, I've done quite a lot of investigating on this, and that much is true. They also claimed that the King and his team weren't happy with that because they've been trying to put off a full state visit until we'd seen slightly less sabre-rattling from President Trump over Canada and the whole idea of making it a 51st state. Now, I've been assured that's not the case, and everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet, and they are busy working toward a proper, full bells and whistles state visit at Windsor Castle in September.
Interesting. Now, Richard, a quick look at the comments section on any episode of Palace Confidential will tell you that the Canadians feel very strongly about their King Charles and what he should be saying to President Trump about their country.
Of course they do. I mean, you know, King Charles is as much the monarch of Canada as he is of here and Australia, you know. So, I mean, I really do feel for the King, because we have a government that seems desperate to suck up to Donald Trump, and they're using the King for that purpose, sort of forgetting, it seems, that he is also King of Canada. So, you know, the King was very keen to go to Canada for the opening of Parliament, and, you know, he made some comments. He, you know, was really keen to assert that Canada will remain, you know, under his reign, and he was keen to make these points. But then at the same time, he's got the pressure from our government saying, you've got to do this. So they put him in an awkward position. I'm not surprised that he wanted to delay the state visit until things had calmed down. And, you know, I mean, really, look, they could have used things to try and put a bit of pressure on Trump. They could have said, we've got this state visit next year, perhaps, but you do need to pipe down about Canada because it's disrespectful to the Canadians, it's disrespectful to the King. And that may have acted as pressure. But instead they've said, no, you come, you know, we'll arrange a state visit as soon as you want. And it's real undue haste, I would say.
What do you think that we can read into this report, Rebecca, that it was previously thought that Trump and King Charles were going to have a less formal meeting in Scotland this summer, but that's been put on, well, cancelled, basically?
Yeah, so there is a very logical explanation of this, some of which I can explain and some I can't for security reasons. But as we know, Sir Keir Starmer, British Prime Minister, took a letter from King Charles to the White House.
The fake Duchess, as I call her, has been working with these imbeciles, with these bots, with these paid PR trolls to become, I believe, the biggest internet trolling operation in the history of the World Wide Web. And the mainstream media have never wanted to talk about this. Even when the Sussex Squad were going after Catherine, the Princess of Wales, going after the Queen, they've never wanted to talk about it. They've never challenged the fact that Meghan and Harry claim to be campaigners for a clean internet, but have the biggest gang of trolls who they endorse. And so I'm going to keep on this story. And today I'm specifically keeping on this story because of one specific member of the Sussex Squad, the notorious JTB, a talentless, ugly loser. But the critical thing is, a talentless, ugly loser who is backed by Ms. Markle. Ms. Markle engages with this man. And I'm going to show you exactly what he is doing to try and destroy Lady Colin Campbell. Lady Colin Campbell, who, by the way, when he was making these videos, was suffering in hospital with a broken pelvic, which shows you what type of scum this human being is. But before we get to that, let me bring in Brittany, editor of the Royal News Network, because, Brittany, I just want to contextualise the reality of the Sussex Squad. These are truly vile, despicable trolls who operate at a sort of arm's length basis from Markle and Harry, but are clearly endorsed by them. I mean, Brittany, Christopher Boozy, who is the spiritual leader of the Sussex Squad, even appeared on the couple's Netflix documentary. And they have had opportunity after opportunity to distance themselves from the Sussex Squad, and they never have.
No, and we know, Dan, that Harry and Meghan are well aware of what happens on the internet regarding them. They are constantly watching, constantly engaged in it. And really, Meghan created the Sussex Squad. Like, her whole letter to the media, or through Harry, the letter to the media, calling them alleged racists, is what got the Sussex Squad started in the first place. They were bolstered by the Oprah Winfrey interview, and they just utilize despicable tactics. They are abhorrent people in so many ways. I've had to deal with them. I know many others have as well. And it's just so incredibly ugly, the things that they come up with, how they're trying to find your friends, your family, and attack you and pull pictures and all these sorts of things, which is completely and utterly unnecessary things to do. But Harry and Meghan have always had the opportunity, because they know about them, to call them out on their behavior and go, hey, people agree to disagree. That's fine. But let's, put some things aside. They never do it. And honestly, I think that's why Harry and Meghan remain deeply unpopular, is that they encourage this toxicity. I think Meghan sort of loves the toxicity that she generates. I think she enjoys the drama, enjoys the chaos, these sorts of things. And it's just really ugly and unfortunate reality of just having an opinion in the royal space. And so Harry and Meghan should and must address this, but they absolutely refuse to, because I think, especially Meghan Markle, she loves it. She loves them. She loves what they do on her behalf, and she encourages it 100%.
Yeah, and this guy ain't hiding that he's a member of the troll. I mean, look at this. JT, notoriously opinionated Gemini. I mean, this is how much of a loser he is. His Spotify playlist is a With Love Meghan Spotify playlist. No one wants to listen to that. My God. Yeah. But the point being, right, this guy is out and out parading as a troll, yet, and I will prove this via the Sidleys in just one moment, the Sidley twins, is engaging on a regular basis with Markle. But I want to show you what he has said about our Lady Colin Campbell, who is, of course, recovering from this broken pelvis, has been in hospital over the past few weeks. And by the way, for anyone who maybe doesn't realize in America, has had a decades-long career before Meghan Markle was ever on the scene, a household name in the United Kingdom, in part because of her legendary appearance on the big ITV reality show I'm a Celebrity, but also someone who was the first to reveal everything that was going on with Princess Diana back in the 90s. So his claim that Lady Colin Campbell is in some way obsessed with Markle because it helps her career is complete balderdash. Just like me, someone who had a very big career before Meghan came on the scene, we just saw a woman who was trying to bring down the British royal family, and we thought they need our help, and we got on this, and we were able to reveal to the world what Meghan Markle was really about. So that's what I just want to set up before I show you some of the bile coming from this man. And by the way, and some people will question why I'm doing it, and it's because you've got to see. You have to see the types of ugly, talentless, loser, hater trolls that Meghan Markle chooses to surround herself with. Watch. A very quick but personal message from me to you to let you know that the best way you can support Dan Wood and Outspoken is to subscribe to my Substack at www.outspoken.live. Substack is a free speech platform that protects me from big tech cancellation and lawfare. Paid annual or monthly subscribers get an extra hour of content with the Royal Uncancelled After Show available every weekday with no advertising whatsoever. You can also message me direct on there. That's www podcast.outspoken.live.
Let's talk about the corpse formerly known as Lady Colin Campbell, who speaks about Meghan and Harry with a level of rage that sounds like it's been fermenting since the 1800s. Every time she opens her mouth, you can practically hear the cobwebs shaking off her opinions. She was born Georgia Ariana Ziadi in Jamaica. Not British aristocracy, not palace-raised royalty, not a woman molded in the halls of Windsor. She grew up in a strict, old-world merchant family, then hauled herself to London chasing social status that never embraced her. That rejection grew roots in her personality. It sculpted the bitterness she weaponizes today. Bitter rot that she weaponizes against Meghan and Harry.
I mean, he's a troll. He's just a troll. And then he decides to go for Lady C's fertility. And I think that is disgusting, especially given all of the questions about his own hero's fertility. Watch.
Meghan represents everything she couldn't hang on to. A successful and loving marriage with her own biological children. Because Lady Cunt had to adopt hers. That's why she reacts to Meghan with pure venom. Meghan's mere name reminds her she's the cream that clotted centuries ago. She looks and sounds like an artifact, relics from a dusty century, soaked in dying hierarchies and stale fantasies. She takes gossip crumbs, coats them in her own resentment, and spits them out like verdicts. She talks about Harry like he betrayed her directly. She talks about Meghan like Meghan broke a rule she invented. Nothing Lady Cunt says is rooted in reality. It's rooted in dementia, in old grudges, in delusions she's been nursing for decades. She built a whole persona around royal commentary, but her fixation on the Sussexes comes from a darker place. It's personal. It's hostile. It's ritualistic at this point. Meghan and Harry are just mirrors she keeps screaming into, hoping her ghostly reflection will scream back. Meghan didn't harm her. Harry didn't harm her. She dragged them into her crypt long before they even appeared.
Just absolutely revolting stuff. And a couple of things I want to pick up on. Well, they did betray us. They betrayed us all. Speaking of Harry and Meghan, if you're a monarchist and you're a royalist and you're a patriot, then absolutely it was a personal betrayal. Because they lied about racism within the British royal family to try and bring the British royal family down. So actually it was a personal betrayal. Now, to claim that Lady C has dementia is utterly ludicrous. I mean, I've spent a lot of time with this woman, including recently, and she's one of the sharpest tools in the shed. Okay, so that's just total nonsense. And actually, when we were editing those clips together, we didn't include what he said about Lady C's fertility. But what this horrible guy says is that because she adopted her children, that she's jealous because Meghan was able to have her children naturally. Well, number one, Lady C has always been very open about her adoption of her two lovely sons, and that's a beautiful thing. But Lady C's issue with Meghan Markle is to do with the fact that we don't know if her two children, Archie and Lily, should legally be in the line of succession, because we still have not seen the evidence or the proof to say that Meghan actually gave birth to those two children. That's what it's about. So it's nothing to do with her own personal fertility, which she has been very, very open about. Now, the Sidley twins, who actually were the first people, thankfully, to point out this horrible, notorious JTB to me. I had no idea who he was. Have done a lot of work to reveal the direct links between this Sussex Squad troll and Markle herself. Watch.
Someone has come after Lady Colleen Campbell in the most heinous way, and I'm very upset about it. I'm only going to play 30 seconds of it. It's absolutely disgusting. This is someone who Meghan has re-Instagrammed, liked, and not only has ever liked, she liked it. She views all his videos.
Yes.
And he shows proof that she does. He's stupid enough to take screenshots. Meghan associates with these people and has no problem with it whatsoever.
Put the elder abuse with these people.
That's what I wrote. This guy,
Why?
he went after the fact that Lady Colleen Campbell cannot naturally have children. I better hope that it never comes out that Meghan used a surrogate, allegedly. He better hope that never, ever comes out. Sussex Squatty, who actually posts things, Meghan Markle's personal Instagram account and her As Ever account, likes his videos, regrams his videos openly. So it doesn't matter. This guy's insane. This is her regramming him. And he's so excited about it because his god, Meghan Markle, is doing this. And again, As Ever mentioned him in their story. This was one of the most disgusting pictures, too, that I've ever seen in my entire life. This was the worm one. These are the people that she has in her corner. These are the people that she will never denounce. Look at his face.
It's sick.
It's like he just won the lottery, dude.
He showed this?
He takes a screenshot of it because he's demented. He wanted to show everybody that Meghan, her personal page, liked it, and As Ever liked it, because that's just how Meghan Markle is. She hates everyone. She hates women. She hates her fans, allegedly. But it's just it's this type of behavior that I think this is one of the huge reasons why the titles will be stripped, because at the end of the day, you can't constantly hate speech. You just can't at the end of the day. And I don't care if that's who you are, that's fine. You're entitled to your own opinions. We live in America. Do what you want with that. But the UK and Prince William, when he becomes king, he doesn't have to tolerate it. He gets stripped that away. And Lady C is a lady.
Brittany, it is very shocking, isn't it? Because the fact that Meghan doesn't follow anyone on social media suggests that she is seeking this troll out. But first, the number one worst fruit for your waistline. Are you turning healthy fruits into highly unhealthy fruits without even realizing it? Fruit can be one of the healthiest things you can put into your body, but the majority of Americans are guilty of making this single mistake that can counteract all of the health benefits of fruit. Some fruits help with occasional constipation, reduce bloating, and even help burn calories. Others can wreak havoc on your digestive system and energy levels. I came across this viral presentation from world-renowned surgeon Dr. Stephen Gundry that showcases the 3 fruits to stop eating today. And it was shocking. I had no idea. And after finding it out, I've stopped eating these too. I'm going to put a link for you all to watch it because I want you to gain this information. I think it's truly important. You can watch it right now at thehealthyfat.com/outspoken. That's thehealthyfat.com/outspoken. I also linked it in the description box below the video too, so make sure to click on it or just go to thehealthyfat.com/outspoken. Oh, and by the way, eliminating these fruits could forever change the way we help increase energy levels, decrease brain fog, support digestion, and even lose weight. So make sure to click below or go to thehealthyfat.com/outspoken to find out now. Dr. Gundry has lost 70 pounds himself using his research and has kept the weight off for over 20 years and counting. His digestive issues are gone, his health is fantastic, and he feels younger and healthier today than he did in his 40s. His video has been watched by over 20 million people to date, and you can watch and learn more about it at thehealthyfat.com/outspoken. It's linked at the bottom of this video, but he'll teach you exactly how he has kept his weight off for free at thehealthyfat.com/outspoken. Just click on the link in the description below the video. But now, back to the show.
It does. And we have a lot of evidence for this. You can see this that she's constantly and Harry are constantly clapping back against what they're seeing on social media. But I do want to address, obviously, a little bit of what this guy does. I think I've seen him mentioned a time or two. Haven't seen really anything that he's done, but he exemplifies what so many of the Sussex Squad people do, which is that they automatically take what you are offering as, let's say, legit criticism of Harry and Meghan, and immediately going with an ad hominem attack and misdirecting your actual argument. And it's kind of a logical fallacy, and it reflects that they can't actually argue you on the merits of your argument. They have to attack you personally because that's the only option that they have. They don't know enough about royal protocol to really address anything that you're bringing up. And so they constantly have to move it to these personal attacks against, let's say, what you look like or your family, or, in Lady C's case, deplorably going after her fertility or whatever. It's these disgusting tactics that really have nothing to do with sort of the greater conversations going on within the royal sphere. And yes, not everything said about Meghan, I would argue, also falls into some of what is said against Meghan does fall into that ad hominem thing. But at the same time, her squad uses it all the time. They can't really defend her on the merits of the actual arguments. And this shows again how sort of deplorable her fan base is that they have to resort to these tactics and how little they know. And it's very frustrating to address or try to address some of these issues, and they're not really even worth arguing with because they really have nothing to stand on. But Meghan loves this. She is, in my personal opinion, very much has high school, middle school, mean girl energy. And so she loves this type of behavior, I think. I think she encourages it, obviously, with this gentleman. She encourages that level of behavior. She likes it. She enjoys it. And she wants people to do that. And I think that's pretty disgusting, in my opinion.
Yeah, and by the way, it's not just commentators like Lady C who he has targeted. Like other members of the Sussex squad, he targets the real royals. And so this is Meghan endorsing and attacks on her own family. I mean, look at his graph about Queen Camilla, claiming that Camilla is down in the popularity stakes compared to Meghan, which is ludicrous anyway. But look at what he's nicknamed her, Brittany, Cow Miller.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
Says it all.
It does. And this, again, Dan, goes to sort of the horrible attacks that her fans do. She wants them to attack the royal family. She, again, enjoys it because she feels like in some ways she has tried to do that and that route hasn't totally worked. And she can let them loose, encourage them, and they feed off it. And so it's just this little negative toxicity little group that she has created and fosters. And she wants them to attack the institution of the monarchy, which is sort of ridiculous because the whole entire reason she has that squad in the first place is because she married into the royal family and no real other reason. And I have to say, and some people might disagree, but I think some of the, let's say, most racist people within the royal sphere are, in fact, Meghan Markle's fans. And so they are the worst of the worst when it comes to that because they see the color of your skin. You say, well, you don't like her just because of that. And that's obviously not true. Again, there's so many reasons why people don't like Meghan Markle. And the more she fosters these type of people, the less people are going to like her because if they just happen to have, let's say, a little bit of a complaint or a question or whatever, they get mercilessly attacked for it completely unreasonably, and it turns people off her 100%. But I think at the same time, she loves it, so she can't seem to let it go.
Brittany, interesting new reporting from Paula Frolic of News Nation, who has revealed in an exclusive, although this is something that we've also been discussing for some time, Prince William to change the monarchy forever. No titles for Beatrice. She writes, Prince William is gearing up to become king sooner rather than later, I'm told. And his vision for the monarchy is going to look very different from his father, King Charles's reign. Fewer titles means there is less of a chance for a degenerate like Prince Andrew, now called Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, to slip through, which means, as I previously reported, Harry and Meghan will lose their titles as well as Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. And it's interesting, isn't it, Brittany, that she's now just reporting this as a fact. It's not Harry and Meghan might lose their titles. William might consider some type of punishment for them. It is Harry and Meghan will lose their titles.
It's very interesting, Dan. And honestly, it is hard to argue that you could strip the titles from Harry and Meghan and not do it to Beatrice and Eugenie as well. I don't think they necessarily deserve it. But I understand for the future of the monarchy, they have to address this issue. They cannot let it fester for too many years. But sort of the problem with Andrew is not that he had a title. The real problem with Andrew is that his behavior was allowed to go on for so long. He was allowed to abuse his position within the royal family for so long that it resulted in sort of a catastrophic, oh my gosh, the royal family might fail scenario. And so I think the actual bigger, let's say, thing to address in the future for the royal family. And I think the Waleses are doing a fantastic job at raising their family. Obviously, we won't really truly know about the children until they become adults. But it seems like the ground has been firmly laid. But I think the future more resides in how do you quickly address royals, let's say, that are stepping outside their bounds. Like Andrew, he was going on those trade envoys and he was wheeling and dealing for himself along with the British people. And that was not his job. His job was to represent the UK, not himself. And so I think the bigger issue is how do you address, let's say, deviations in behavior early, kind of like disciplining children. You got to discipline them early because once they get older, it becomes more difficult to manage. So I think the bigger question, I think, for the royal family is not just, oh, we need to, limit the titles because, oh, somebody might go rogue. It's how do you, let's say, keep the titles people have and not allow people to go rogue or address them or have a way to, let's say, strip the titles if somebody goes, I don't want to be part of the working royal fold any longer. But again, not surprised that if you do it to Harry and Meghan, which I think is very much in the future, it's difficult to argue that you can't do it to Beatrice and Eugenie as well, just to say, oh, we're cleaning up everything. It kind of avoids targeting directly Harry and Meghan in that scenario.
Yeah, it would be very strategically smart, to be honest.
It would.
Interesting, too, that Prince Andrew's friends are hitting back at both the US Congress and the British Prime Minister. This is via our friend Tom Sykes over at the Royalist blog on Substack, who reports Andrew's friends say there is no way on earth he will ever voluntarily sit for a congressional deposition, an exclusive insight that lands just as lawmakers in Washington grow increasingly infuriated by his silence. One close friend of Andrew's told the Royalists that representatives on the House Oversight Committee were merely showboating and issuing self-aggrandizing press releases insisting they knew the former prince would never agree to testify and could not be compelled to do so. Another friend said, I hate to state the obvious, but no, he is not going to do a deposition in Congress. These same friends also mocking Keir Starmer's call for Andrew to testify. And they say, well, that's because Starmer said when asked about Andrew that if one has relevant information, you should be prepared to share it. However, it was met with eye rolling, according to Tom Sykes from Andrew's ever-shrinking circle. Isn't it incredible, one told me, that just as there's talk of a leadership challenge against Starmer, he suddenly decides he's the hammer of Prince Andrew. Andrew's allies have long argued that he is a convenient political piñata. They made the same complaint when the House Oversight Committee sent a formal letter requesting that Andrew sit for a deposition or a transcribed interview about his relationship with Epstein. Friends previously told the Royalist that the US politicians know perfectly well that Andrew will never testify and cannot be compelled to do so. They say that